talked about the ancestors. And the ancestors were buried in the earth. They were not in the heavens above, they were in the earth. They were in the mountains. They were on the earth. And people revered the ancestors. And so they revered the earth itself. They didn't destroy the earth. They didn't pollute the water. They didn't mine the mountain and destroy it. They didn't pollute the food. They didn't pollute human bodies. So it's a very important way of relating to the earth. And as Wangari Maathai was an environmentalist, she talked about this and she made a very clear observation around it. Culture is also about our food, our music, our dress, all sorts of things. But culture, we know, is not static. Culture have been used in apartheid South Africa to divide us. Up until 1994, I would not wear a sari to any official occasion. And the reason for that was that I grew up opposing the ethnic leadership that was imposed on us as Indians. And I'm saying Indians in inverted commas because I was told growing up as a child that when I went to school, that we went to an Indian school and they went to a colored school and they went to an African school, and each schooling system, in fact, within each African school there was ethnic traditions that were separated out again. So there were 16 education departments during apartheid. 16 education departments. And we were divided up from each other. And we were told that some were less and some were lesser than others. And some were superior than others. And so inherent dignity was being undermined right from the start. And as a political activist against apartheid, I was also a teacher. We started out teaching in schools and then in university. And the one thing that we were told was that our leader was somebody called Amichan Rajbansi. He was the head of the education department. He was a wrestler. He was a wrestler. He wasn't an educationist. He was a wrestler. But he was part of the apartheid system. So he was appointed, self-appointed, and then appointed by the apartheid state as our leader. And during the tricameral elections, as a teacher, we were supposed to vote for him. And he would wear, he and his wife would, and all the apartheid puppets, as we call them, would wear the ethnic garb. They would wear the sari, they would cook the biryani, they would cook the samosas, and they would invite apartheid presidents, and they would garland those presidents. So I did not identify in any way as, in inverted commas, Indian, because of the way in which ethnicity was being used to divide and to oppress. And we know this replicates in terms of the homeland system, in terms of the so-called Bantustans, the so-called self-governing territories in our country. But 1994 changed that. 1994 said that we are all free to claim every part of our heritage and to celebrate it. Not as a basis for division, but a basis for life and life celebration. So today I'm wearing a symbol of friendship. Around my neck is a gift given to me by a very close friend of mine, the poet and writer Nina Mshlopi. And I claim this as my heritage, as friendship, as much as I claim this dress that I'm wearing. as part of the heritage.
The choice is yours.
So the choice is ours. Post 1994, what we have is freedom. What we have is the freedom to choose the best of who we are. And not to be limited and boxed by anyone. About anything. There is a wonderful thing that Steve Biko said. He said that we're on a journey, and on the horizon is the glittering prize, our humanity. I don't know how many of you know that saying. But Biko taught, and he inspired a generation of us in 1974 when I was in school, 1976 when I finished school. A generation of us to actually claim who we are, not as defined by the apartheid state. So the apartheid state said, you're Indian, colored, African, you're non-European, you're non-white. And all of us said, actually, we're all black. All of us are black. We're not non-European, we're all black. Our legislation actually talks about African, Indian, and colored people, as in the old definition, as black people. That's the law. That's how the law now defines us since 1994. In the same way that our Constitution doesn't talk about men as representing women. Do you remember that most laws, most constitutions refer to men only, and they say including women? Our Constitution talks about men and women. So we fought for that. Women of this country fought for that. The people of this country fought for dignity inherent to every single one of us to be in our Constitution. So I want to, what does all of that have to do with food and herbs and healing herbs? I also asked Kangalani, Mpumi, and Tami to speak to everyone about what are the special herbs that are used to heal. What are the special herbs that are used to heal every single one of our traditions? There are herbs. Huh? Come on, give me some names. Give me some names.
Snake.
Okay, one at a time. One hand, come on, Alicia.
Snake.
Snake? Daka? Alu? African potato? Malinka? Okay, I want you now, we're not going to have time right now, but if we had time, what I would like to do, and maybe this is a wonderful project, is alongside, we're still waiting for the photographs of everyone. Remember the last staff meeting, we said photographs of everyone, with a little bit about who you are in each photograph. Along our walls, along the walls of this institution. But another little project for the team is, what are all those healing herbs? And what do they do? Go and speak to your mothers and your grandmothers, because they are the repository generally. The women generally have been the repository of knowledge and wisdom about herbs. Hopefully men will also be part of that. But in most cultures, it has been women. We can change that today. But that's an extremely important thing, because that knowledge has been forgotten. And it's also been consciously suppressed. So for example, how many of you remember that in your grandmother's time and your mother's time, there were midwives? How many of you remember that? How many of you in this generation have had access to midwives? How many of you know that right now across the country, many women die in childbirth, giving birth, yet they are living in rural areas where the tradition of midwifery was legendary? So why is that the situation? So in the Eastern Cape, when we held the emergency medical services hearings, we heard that people die because they're giving birth in childbirth, they're giving birth and there's complications and they die. So the issue of there is wisdom, absolutely science has made incredible progress. And that must be, we all embrace that. But this is a huge area that can help in how we go forward. So what is happening, and in terms of how does that link to human rights, it's obvious. And how does human rights link to budget choices is obvious. Because the state should be supporting women to keep that knowledge going. Because they do that work. But if that work is not supported, it dies out. So there's practical things. So we don't have time now to talk about the herbs. We don't have time to talk about a whole range of things that are important in terms of healing. I was hoping that you'd also bring something about your food. Everybody has different food that is given. For example, when a mother is pregnant, how many of you have special food? There are certain things you're told to eat when you're pregnant. Because you're feeding the baby in the womb. Right? How many of your mothers breastfed you? How many of you are breastfed in this room? All of us were breastfed. Okay. What does the science say? What does the science say about breastfeeding? It's the most nutritious food you can give a baby. It's the best food you can give a baby. But yeah, there are some of us that can't breastfeed because of various complications. But this is a very important thing. When it's possible, that women should be breastfeeding. Yet, what's the advertisements for? What's the advertisements plugging? What's the media plugging? If you're a modern woman, bottle feed. That's also good to bottle feed as well, so men can participate in feeding the baby. But there can be a balance. You can actually express breast milk and into a bottle, and the man can and bottle feed with your breast milk. Okay, so, but I want to end with the power you have in the South African Human Rights Commission to protect the right to food. Because the right to food isn't just about quantity of food. It's about quality. How many of you remember that there was a bit of an outcry, in fact it was a big outcry, about baby food like Purity having genetically modified food in it? How many of you remember that outcry? All of you remember that? How many of you remember the fact that it was withdrawn? That they removed genetically modified food from Purity, Nestle products, etc. All remember that? Yes. But in our country, people who are poor cannot afford to buy Purity, and they are feeding their baby what is grown and what they can buy in the shop and in the supermarket and what they can grow in their backyard. And today, we are the only country in the world which has allowed our staple food to be genetically modified. So that means that mothers who are poor and working class do not have a choice. They are feeding our future genetically modified food, which the genetically modified industry withdrew because of the outcry from middle class and wealthy families. That is unacceptable. How many of you saw the pictures of the mice in the French study that had been fed genetically modified food? Any of you saw those pictures? Google them. Google them. Those mice, they had breasts which were cancer. Okay, that's the reality. That is the reality. Why is the price of food so high? Every year that seed has to be bought. You cannot store the seed. You know, how many of you remember if you're coming from rural areas, that seed was stored.
Yeah.
How many of you remember that? Seed was stored. Okay? Many parts of the country, you still do. But across the country, organizations like Monsanto now have a free hand. They are going with the extension officers to give to farmers, small farmers, big farmers,
Yeah.
genetically modified seed, pesticides, fertilizers, herbicides, etc. That is what they are getting. So the landscape of food is changing. And this is a disaster because those people who are exporting food from South Africa to Europe cannot export genetically modified food because the Europeans say we don't want genetically modified food. But we have imported chicken that has got all kinds of chemicals in it that people don't know about. Massive amount of chicken, and we don't know what that contains. We are one of 3 or 4 countries across Africa that have agreed to genetically modified food. 2 of the other countries are war-torn countries, Sudan and Burkina Faso. So how will you celebrate Heritage Day? I want to say absolutely today. Celebrate our dress, celebrate our songs and our dance, and celebrate the food that we have, and use your power to make sure that something gets changed in relation to this. The intellectual property laws are going to be on the table now, in fact, in Parliament. We need to be speaking about this. Every single one of us needs to be speaking about this. And we need to be finding ways in which we can use our power to share this information. Just in terms of sharing, I thought I would share something in terms of herbal healing herbs. So I brought a huge packet of something called turmeric. And turmeric was, there was an attempt to patent turmeric. And like the attempt to patent rooibos tea. So, and I'm sure a whole lot of other herbs in South Africa, which we're not watching. So we need to scrutinize this. So the healing herbs, turmeric, has been, today you can buy it in America in capsule form as a natural antibiotic, as a anti-inflammatory, etc., etc. It's also something that I grew up with. If ever there was a cut, and if ever any of my children, my 32-year-old son laughs and says, you know, he was telling his girlfriend recently, he said, you know, my mother, anything happened, you got a cut, anything, she would bring, we call it manja. He would say, yeah, put manja on it. So I brought some manja, stroke turmeric, and you're all welcome to take a teaspoonful or more and put it into a little piece of, if you've got a little packet, it's nicer. And it's a nice thing to have at home. So if your kid gets cut, you can just put a bit of it. It heals really fast. It makes sure that there's no scar afterwards. Okay, and proof of that is, how many of you remember that very, very bad fracture that I had on my ankle? There was 5 clean fractures. The wound looked ugly, really ugly. Okay, I put manja. Okay, have a wonderful Heritage Day tomorrow with your families and with whatever you're doing tomorrow. So thank you very much. It was wonderful to honor to get you here. Thank you.
Turmeric.